Hi, my name is Ingrid Reiten. I'm a data curation scientist in the EBRAINS curation team, and I will present this lesson about the data descriptor in our course series on data sharing in EBRAINS. Well, the EBRAINS Data and Knowledge service is specifically built to facilitate fair data sharing. And in the current course series, we introduce a few essential steps of data sharing, and we highlight why these steps should be a focus of any researcher who wants to share their data as fairly as possible through EBRAINS. And these steps include data organization, metadata organization, and the data descriptor. Data organization and metadata organization is covered in two other lessons in this training course, and the current will focus on the data descriptor. So in this lesson, I will discuss the importance of providing a data descriptor alongside your data and give you advice on how to prepare such a document for the purpose of sharing data through EBRAINS. So neuroscience research covers many different research topics, ranging from proteomics to brain activity and behavior, and this generates a large amount of heterogeneous data types. The diversity of data types, as well as the lack of standardization of methods and experimental protocols between labs and within labs, poses a challenge for reproducibility and replicability of neuroscience data. Research simply cannot be reproduced if the original data are not available or possible to interpret, and research cannot be replicated unless the methods and protocols are well defined. So the FAIR guiding principles, briefly mentioned in the introduction of this talk, refers to findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable data. And these principles allow us to develop common directions for data sharing to overcome some of the obstacles that are associated with the large variety and lack of standardization of neuroscience research data. So in this lesson, we will mostly focus on how to make research reproducible by making data fair. So the data descriptor is a standalone document to aid future users of the data. The purpose of such a document is to enable others to reuse the data, increase the reuse potential of the data in general, as well as allow others to reproduce the data. The document describes the context the data were originally generated in, how the data were generated, which methods were used, or how the data were analyzed, and also how the data files are organized. So in essence, a data descriptor should make the research reproducible and contain the necessary information to allow someone else to reproduce or reuse the data, as well as clarify any misunderstandings concerning the data. So EBRAINS requires data providers to fill out a data descriptor when sharing a data set on EBRAINS. We already touched upon why the data descriptor is important. It contains essential information about the data set that cannot otherwise be captured by short terms, keywords, and ontologies, and it encourages the standardization of protocols in-house and between labs. But you can also publish your data descriptor in journals such as Nature Scientific Data. And we facilitate this by having a data descriptor template that is based on the template of Nature Scientific Data, and EBRAINS is also one of the recommended repositories of this journal. So some of the elements in the data descriptor are similar to a standard research paper, such as a descriptive title, list of authors, affiliations, and abstract, background information, method section, and references. And for datasets that are shared alongside a research paper, these sections are typically similar. However, in many cases, they require some modification just to ensure that only information that's relevant to the shared data is included. Other sections in the data descriptor may not be self-explanatory to most researchers, as they differ from typical research papers. So for the rest of this lesson, I will focus on these sections in greater detail, provide some examples, and with this try to explain what they are about. In the technical validation section, we ask researchers to provide any procedures that were used to validate the reliability of the data. It could point out control experiments that have been performed, or refer to standardized protocols or previous studies. So this section answers questions such as why the users should trust these data, or what did the authors do to test the validity of their results. The usage notes are specifically aimed at the use and reuse of the dataset. This section should include experiment-specific information to help other researchers with, for instance, opening or viewing the data files. This section could also include suggestions for additional analysis which codes to use, or how to compare and integrate this dataset with other datasets. Here, it is particularly important to include the version of software, because software changes frequently and certain features may be deprecated in newer versions. So to circumvent these potential issues with software version, we always recommend researchers to share data in non-proprietary formats that can be opened by non-commercial software and do not require a license. So all brain research-related datasets have one thing in common, and that is anatomical location. And therefore, it is important to also provide an accurate description of the anatomical location that your work is related to. And this is what the spatial anchoring section is used for. So here we ask you to provide a description of your region of interest. Which part of the brain are you interested in, and how was this region located or targeted in this particular study? You may fill in this section by providing the reference atlas that you used for your study, or by including the specific coordinates. It's also great to provide other descriptions such as images and annotations, and we encourage you to do so if possible. In eBrains, we also have digital 3D atlases that your data can be registered to, and this provides another way to increase the findability of your data. It also allows users to obtain an overview of which other datasets are linked to the same brain areas of the same species, and this could increase the reuse potential of your datasets. In the code availability section, we ask you to list the software and analysis packages that were used to generate or process the shared data. And this is particularly important to include when you're sharing both raw and processed data. If you used external sources such as GitHub, it would be great to share any links or references to where these can be found and whether they're openly available or not. If you developed custom-made scripts to analyze your data, we encourage you to share these scripts as part of your dataset. And remember, if there are more versions of the code or software available, don't forget to include the version that you used. So all the previous sections provide information about how the data is generated, analyzed, and how it can be reused. But they do not give explicit information about how the data is organized in the repository. So the data record section shows how data is organized, what naming convention and folder hierarchy was used, and it gives a description of what the content of the files is. So a clear data record section, such as this one, increases the reuse potential of your dataset. And for more useful tips on how to organize your data for a particular audience, please check out the lesson about data organization that is also a part of this course series. So the more concise and information-rich your data descriptor is, the more fair and targeted towards reuse your dataset becomes. But although we encourage a detailed data descriptor, we realize that not all researchers have this capacity. In our experience, researchers are quite diversely oriented in terms of previous experience, time restraints, and investment in the data sharing process. So for this reason, we allow for several levels of detail for the data descriptor, and we refer to these as simple, medium, and advanced. The simple data descriptor level makes it possible to perform a modified copy-paste from existing research papers with a few additions to improve reusability. The medium level includes more elaborate descriptions and requires some more effort from the researcher. The majority of our reusable datasets on eBrains have data descriptors on this level. And third, the advanced level of a data descriptor would be publishable in a data descriptor journal such as Nature Scientific Data or F1000 Research. Regardless, the eBrains curation service assists with advice on how to complete your data descriptor during the curation process. Thank you for your attention. We hope this lesson improved your understanding of some aspects of data sharing. Please have a look at the other lessons in our eBrains data sharing course series here on the INCF training space. Let us know if you have any questions, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. And lastly, if you wish to share your data on eBrains, please submit a curation request at ebrains.eu/service/share-data. This video was made possible by the eBrains Data and Knowledge team and the partnering institutions for storage and computing. If you're curious to know more, send us an email or follow us on social media.